I'm going to show you how you can avoid crossovers and blocked holes on the outside of the frame. This is a Pathfinder awl. It's made by Gamma, and the outside diameter of this needle here is about 1.8 millimeters. These are blunt nose needles. This one here I believe is a 14 gauge, and the outside diameter of this needle is also about 1.8 millimeters, but the inside diameter is a little bit smaller than the Pathfinder awl. This, I believe, is a 15 gauge needle, and the outside diameter of that needle is about 1.6 millimeters. This here is also a 15 gauge needle, and the little plastic part is broken off of it, but you can see here that there's little bumps on the end of it that hold this on. I guess they work fine for the intended purpose of putting them on a syringe, but they don't work very good for stringing tennis rackets. Here I've got a piece of string, and if I try to insert it in this 14 gauge needle, it goes right in there and goes all the way through. Okay? And then what I can do is, if this needle is already in the racket, I can put the string through the needle, pull the needle out, and my string is through the racket. Okay? This needle is not quite big enough on the inside diameter to get this string in. So what I've done is I've cut this string to a point. I don't know if you can see that or not. But then what I can do is put that string inside the needle. They're about the same outside diameter. Actually, the needle's a little bit bigger. And then I can use the string, if I grab it with my pliers, and push this through the racket. And actually what happens is the string follows the needle as I'm pushing the string through, and when I pull this off, my string's through the racket. I'm going to show you how I use all of these while I'm stringing a racket to avoid crossovers and blocked holes in a tennis racket frame. Alright, what I've done so far now is I've ran in the center 12 mains, and I've ran in the top 3 crosses. The reason I run in the top 3 crosses is I'm getting around these holes that could be blocked by skipping 7 and 9 in the top of the racket and running the mains in. I've got 2 14 gauge needles and 2 15 gauge needles here. The 14 gauge needles won't fit through the grommet itself. So what I have to determine is which way my string is going to go when it gets down here to the bottom. This is a 20 cross racket. So if I tie off up here for the top cross, I'll tie off down here for the bottom cross. So now what I want to do is I want to take the thicker needle, which is the 15 gauge, and put it in this bottom hole right here. Because what I'm trying to do is get around the blockage on the outside of the frame. If I put my needle in this way, which I'm going to do in just a minute, then I'd have to come in from the inside, and there's my blockage right there because I can't get the needle all the way through there. If I come around to this side of the frame now, the string is going to come in over here. So I'm going to take the thinner needle and I'm going to go into, whoa, don't fall down in there. So I'm going to take the thinner needle and go into this grommet hole down here. I'm using my pliers to pull that in there because the end's off of it. Now again, I'm going to use the thicker needle where 19 is coming across this way and go into this grommet hole. And over here, I'll use the thinner needle on this side. Alright? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go on and run in my outside mains. But before I do that, normally on this racket I wouldn't use a Yonex loop, but I'm going to use it this time just to show you how I use the Pathfinder awl. Normally on this racket I wouldn't use a Yonex loop, but I'm going to use it this time just to show you how I use the Pathfinder awl. Okay? And the reason I wouldn't use that Yonex loop is this string normally will go up through this grommet and down through this grommet. If I come down here and tie off all the way over here, if I come down here on the 7th main and tie off here, I'll have two strings that block this grommet right here, which creates a problem if you're not using these needles. So I'm going to run in the outside main and make sure when you do that you go the same as this string for your weave. And I've got both of these needles on the outside of the frame on top of the string that goes from this grommet hole to this grommet hole. Now I'm going to take my Pathfinder awl and put it in this grommet hole, and I'm going to pull my tension. Now I'm going to run the 7th main, and I'm going to open up this Pathfinder awl. One thing about the Pathfinder awl now is the way this Pathfinder awl works is there's an awl that goes down the center of this tube, and when I pull it back it only comes back about this far. So my string comes in about this far. If I put this awl inside the racket, and there's my frame right there, and I put my string in there so it only goes this far in, when I pull the awl out, it's not going to pull my string through. I have to have the string through the frame when I do that. So now, I've got the string in there now. I'm going to pull this out and insert my string into the Pathfinder awl. Alright, it's all the way in this Pathfinder awl, okay, but it's not through the frame. It's actually about right here somewhere. So what I'm going to do is use my string to push the Pathfinder awl out. Then I can grab my string, and there's no way I'm going to have a blockage there. The needles themselves on one side of the racket have to be pointing in the opposite direction, because I'm going to have a string that goes in here, out there, in here, out there. So it's in, out on the same side, in, out. So the odd numbered cross, 19, will go in this direction. The 20th cross will go in this direction, tie off right here. This string now is actually a 17 gauge NRG2. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a little point on it because the end of it is pretty much mushroomed. Or whatever. Now, this needle right here is the small needle. I can tell because it's fitting through the grommet. But I cut a little point on it so I can put it into the tip of this needle. I can't put it into the channel of this needle because it's still too big. Alright, but I got it into the tip. Now what I can do is I can use my pliers to actually push that past the blockage. I've got my needle, I've got my string through the grommet. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the needle and put it into this grommet hole. Remember, there's a string on the outside that's blocking this grommet, but I've got my needle in there. I can just push it all the way through, and there's my string. Now what I can do, I'm not going to grab this because I like to keep those tips on there if I can, is pull my needle out, my string's all the way through. Here now I've got another small needle, I can tell because it's going through the grommet, so I'll have to push it through. So now I'm going to take my bent nose pliers and just grab it and push it through there. Once it's through, I can remove my needle and I'm good to go. And here's where I had the 2 strings that were blocking the grommet hole. That would have definitely caused a problem. When I get to this side again, I should be able to go all the way through the needle. There's my string all the way through the needle. If I pull the needle out, then my string is all the way through. No blockages at all. I suggest, if you're going to use this method, to be real careful with those needles. They're not sharp, but you could actually bump them and knock them out. You could get a string wrapped around them. So pay attention to what you're doing as you go through there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie off the bottom cross, and once I've got that done, then I'll come back up and take the starting clamp off the top cross and tie it off. If you got any questions, please leave a comment below and I'll try to answer them for you. Have a nice day and thank you very much for watching my video.